Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Gazen on this day after the election. And if you've been following our latest updates, you know the vote counting continues tonight.
That's right. And I'm Leslie Adamy. Thank you for being with us as those incoming results from across the nation still filtering in even right now. And just in tonight, Joe Biden winning Michigan according to the Associated Press, flipping a state that puts Biden within 6 electoral votes of the 270 electoral votes needed to win the presidency.
Some states, including Pennsylvania, actually have until Friday to get all of their votes counted. In tonight's top story at 6, our Mike Gillespie takes a look at what comes next in declaring a winner.
Election day has now come and gone with voters showing up in record numbers, and yet the battle for the White House may be just beginning. Now, short of one presidential candidate conceding, both Republicans and Democrats seem poised for legal fights over vote counts. That means the next month could get messy. And despite that, a quick look at the timeline for electing a president brings to mind some important dates. To begin with, each state sets its own deadline for certifying the election. However, it must be done before December 14th because it is on that day that electors, the folks who make up the Electoral College, will meet in their states and cast their ballots for president. That's what happened back in 2000, by the way, in the presidential election when the Supreme Court stepped in and ruled that the time for counting votes in Florida had run out. Now, once tabulated, those Electoral College results will be sent to Congress by December 23rd. A new Congress will be sworn in on January 3rd, and on the 6th of that month, they will count the electoral votes and formally certify a winner. So what if neither candidate wins a majority of electors? Well, then, according to the 12th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, the House and the Senate become involved. The last time that happened was nearly 200 years ago. It was 1824, and it sent John Quincy Adams to the White House. Keep it here on 3 News as Election 2020 rolls on.